Well, they're carrying out ethnic cleansing, and it is now abundantly clear. We have the evidence. Now, last Monday, Netanyahu said at a Likud meeting that he is in fact working to facilitate the voluntary resettlement of Gazans to other countries. Voluntary is a weird way of putting it when your plan is to make the Gaza Strip unlivable by leveling the Gaza Strip. So people feel that they have no choice but to leave the Gaza Strip because, again, it is unlivable in Gaza. No residential buildings, no functioning hospitals. This was the plan all along. Hence the indiscriminate bombing that we have been seeing in footage, in reports, in unbiased media that we've been sharing with you here at TYT. Now, Netanyahu said, our problem is finding countries that are willing to absorb Gazans, and we are working on it. Netanyahu's coalition is allegedly pushing for the Democratic Republic of Congo to accept thousands of immigrants from Gaza, and is classified as the least developed country in the UN, or by the UN, I should say. It is currently experiencing political instability, lots of clashes between opposing political groups in Congo. Not exactly the type of place people would want to immigrate to, which makes it no surprise to me that Netanyahu and the goons in his far-right government want to push Palestinians out of their land and into a country like the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Literally on October 7th and onwards was to move the population of the Gaza Strip to the Sinai Desert, to Egypt. And this was an idea that was very enthusiastically embraced by the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. He was met with categorical refusal and rejection for this proposal, first and foremost by Egypt. And the US and European governments later came out with a position that they would oppose forced displacement from the Gaza Strip, leaving open the possibility of what we're seeing now, an Israeli military campaign, a primary objective of which is to make the Gaza Strip unfit for human habitation, and then the encouragement of voluntary, or what is now even being called humanitarian emigration in order to achieve the ethnic cleansing.
Various figures within Israel's far-right government, including a known terrorist, by the way, Bezalel Smotrich. He is a known terrorist. I'll explain why in just a moment. He's unfortunately currently the national security minister. I'm sorry, he's the finance minister. And then you also have the national security minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, who are both ardent supporters of these types of plans to ethnically cleanse Palestinians from the Strip. Smotrich, who was arrested in 2005, get a load of this, while protesting Israel's evacuation of its Gaza Strip settlements, said Jerusalem could not allow Gaza to remain as a hothouse of 2 million people who want to destroy the state of Israel. We want to encourage willful immigration, and we need to find countries willing to take them in, he said. You notice how he made a blanket statement about the 2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. They're all terrorists. In their eyes, they're all terrorists. But let's be clear, the real terrorist here is Bezalel Smotrich, okay? He's a terrorist. In fact, he was arrested for terroristic activity prior to what he's serving as right now. It is disgusting that he's a government official, but what more could you expect from Israel's far-right government? And what am I talking about? It had previously been reported that Smotrich was held by the Shin Bet security service for 3 weeks on suspicion that he was planning to block major traffic arteries and damage infrastructure to protest the withdrawal, and was part of a cell of 5 people who were caught allegedly planning an attack with 700 liters of gasoline. They were planning to bomb a major road, an artery that runs through the area. That's who we're talking about. And he has the audacity to call all Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip, half of whom are children, terrorists. Now, back to the present day, where Smotrich also said during an appearance on Israel's Channel 12, we will be in security control and we will need there to be civil control. Okay, I'm for completely changing the reality in Gaza, having a conversation about settlements in the Gaza Strip. He wants the land, guys. We'll need to rule there for a long time. If we want to be there militarily, we need to be there in a civilian fashion. This was his plan all along, right? This war is, in his mind, a perfect opportunity to do something that he's been wanting to do since the early aughts. Get the Palestinians out of that land, because in his mind, that land belongs to the precious settlers who, by the way, carry out all sorts of terror against Palestinians, Armenian Christians in the West Bank. Anyway, let me continue. In a later interview with Israel's Army Radio, Smotrich doubled down. We need to encourage immigration from there. If there were 100,000 to 200,000 Arabs in the Strip and not 2 million, the whole conversation about the day after the war would be completely different. They want to leave. They have been living in a ghetto for 75 years and are in need. Oh right, Smotrich super concerned about Palestinians who are living in a ghetto in the Gaza Strip. A ghetto of Israel's making, let's be clear about that. Because when you're cut off from the world economy, when your borders are shut, and Israel, honestly an enemy state, controls who goes in, who goes out, and what your economy is able to do, the situation ends up being pretty dire in the Gaza Strip. But that is not the fault of Palestinians. That is the result of Israel taking control of the economic situation in the Gaza Strip. Ben-Gvir, meanwhile, said in a Likud meeting on Monday, we cannot withdraw from any territory we are in the Gaza Strip. Not only do I not rule out Jewish resettlement there, I believe it is also an important thing. I'm sure you do. The war presents an opportunity, he says, to concentrate on encouraging the migration of the residents of Gaza, Ben-Gvir told reporters and members of his far-right Otzma Yehudit party, calling such a policy a correct, just, moral, and humane solution. Forcing people out of their land, a humane solution. Of course, forcing them out of their land after you make their land unlivable. After you indiscriminately bomb the land, after you destroy the hospitals, the schools, the residential buildings, the refugee camps. The United States government is funding this, is providing support for this, continues to provide cover for Israel as it carries out its war crimes. And I think that, when they tell you who they are and what they plan to do, you should believe them. Don't insult our intelligence by lying to us in American press and think that we're too stupid to not understand and see what's happening on the ground in Gaza. The footage is real. The fatalities are real. 23,000 Palestinians dead. The number is likely higher because it doesn't even include the number of Palestinians that are trapped under the rubble and presumed to be dead. But that's the reality of the situation. And we're talking about the vast majority of these individuals being women and children. And we say that because, when you think of the excuses that Israel makes, they're targeting Hamas. Well, you don't think of women and children when you think of Hamas. But make no mistake, innocent Palestinian men are also being slaughtered. In some cases, they're being detained, stripped down, humiliated. Doctors with absolutely no evidence of any wrongdoing are being rounded up and detained as well. I find Israel's government deplorable. I find it embarrassing that the United States provides support for this far-right government as it's carrying out its atrocities in the Gaza Strip. I am not a friend, and I do not ever want to be referred to as a friend of Israel's current government. And I would just ask Israelis in Israel to really consider how they appear on the international stage with the kind of representation they have with this far-right government that previously wanted to dismantle their system of checks and balances, do away with the power that the country's judiciary has in order to solidify more power for the far-right government, for people like Netanyahu. Netanyahu is deeply unpopular among Israelis. He's also deeply unpopular on the international stage. He has destroyed any goodwill toward Israel on the international stage. And while the United States government continues to support anything Israel wants to do, regardless of how far right the government is, fact of the matter is, you look at polling among Americans, and they are not in support of what Israel is doing. So for the love of God, please do not refer to people who have a conscience in the United States as friends of this Israeli government. We're not, and we're disgusted by it.